So we were talking about some of the lack of discipline the Browns have shown the last couple of years under Kevin Stefanski in terms of their penalty problems. And, Steve, if you want to take this graphic full, I pulled up the overall amount of penalties and where the Browns rank each season since Kevin Stefanski has been the head coach. And this is their rankings. This season, they have 102 penalties. That's tied for sixth most in the NFL. They do lead the NFL in pre-snap offensive penalties. Last year, 115 penalties. That's tied for second most. 2022, they had.
But they had a great season last year, even with the second most penalties.
2021, they were seventh most. In 2020, they had the eighth most. So they've always been in the top third of the league in terms of penalties under Kevin Stefanski. With two former NFL players and a Division I player on the panel today, I wanted to ask, are pre-snap penalties and are penalties in general, is that more of a player problem or is that more of a coaching issue? When we put the blame and we say this is Stefanski for these guys being undisciplined, is that actually fair or is it more of a player issue?
I'll put it on the coaches first because it's the coach's responsibility to understand what your players can and can't do. Like if you feel like your players are smart enough to be able to go out there and execute these motions, these shifts, and knowing when you got to be on the line of scrimmage, like attention to detail, well, then that's on the coach and that's on the GM to have the right players that you feel like can go out and execute.
Yeah.
There are walkthroughs for a reason. There's reasons why these things are gone. You go over them all the time, and when you have these penalties happen in games, I look at it and say, the number one thing that bothers me is it's a lack of attention to detail, and that's on the player. Okay, the coach should go into the game feeling confident that the players can go out and execute, and when they don't, it's a kind of a combination of both things. I think it starts with the coach, but then on game days, you can't point to anybody else other than the player. And then when the players don't execute the simple stuff, the attention to detail, then it becomes kind of an organizational failure to some degree.
Yeah, I just have a problem. See, from my vantage point, military coaches are just like, I don't even know how I survived. I was just like, listen, thank God that.
Look at the hat I'm wearing right now.
Right.
Okay. The big weekend for the midshipmen. Okay, great win over Army over the weekend. Watch those guys play. Man. There's a shift. There's every play. You don't know who the heck's got the ball. And you know what those guys don't do? There ain't a lot of false starts. There ain't a lot of pre-snap penalties, motion shifts. It ain't happening.
Our coaches came from Air Force, and it was like, I remember, shout out to Coach Grove. I don't know where he at now, retiring with that big bag of money. But when you deal with military coaches, they got it down to a T. Like, all right, meeting start right at what, 5 minutes? No, you gotta be 15 minutes early. Like, you getting penalized for that. You getting penalized for being early. They got a ruler out for measuring how high your socks is. They got a rule. You can't stop putting all that crazy stuff on your tape. There's like, you got one word. I don't want to see graffiti on your wrist. Like, it's just like certain colors you couldn't wear. And there was always things that you were just freaked out about because they hammer it into you since you get there. You're like, listen, we will not jump off sides. If we jump off sides in practice, we'll just run the whole time.
Yeah.
The whole, like, and the first time it happened.
Because why practice anything else if you can't execute the little shit?
I thought it was BS. I'm like, these fools up here. I come from McKinley. We ain't about to be running for what? Like, they jumped off. Man, it happened, and we ran the whole practice, and I was just like, oh, these dudes is crazy. Yeah. This is real, Tyvis.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking at things like Jed Wills, and people say, oh, Jed Wills plays just perfectly fine.
Who said that?
Hey, well, I heard it for 4 or 5 years. Oh, he's just average. We just used to Joe Thomas.
They said that after year one. That's what they said.
Hey, so I'm looking at it this. If you want to jump off sides, you know what I'm going to do? And you got to be able to willing to stand on it. If you jump off sides or you got a false start, I'm pulling you out of the game, and you're going to sit for a quarter. I don't care if you start. Quarter.
I do think that the punishment has to be hard. First of all, before I go into detail, McNuggets, do you stutter?
Do I stutter?
Yeah.
No.
What? Why did you type R twice?
There you go.
Secondly, all right, thank you. That's been bothering me. But no, I do think that if there has to be a sense of fear of the coach. Like, and to me, that's the problem with a lot of younger coaches is that they come in and they want to be friends and all those things, and players take advantage. They're not into.
There's no reverence.
There's no attention to detail like Dustin's saying. Like there's no. You know what? I can toe the line. He's cool. Like, that's my buddy. We're cool. But if it's a coach that come in there that's laying the law down, it's like, you know what? Let me be on top of my stuff. If I fear for my job, like I can't go out there and line up off sides. He might literally pull me out the game, or I might not play for an entire week. Like that's type of stuff going on. So let me lock in. Like that's the thing. And I just think when it comes to discipline, like it's just I think they just let people get away with stuff just a little too much. It's just a little too much.
Do y'all? So if y'all don't play, just because you don't play, does that mean you still get paid, right?
If you get suspended, you don't get paid.
So if you don't get suspended, you don't get paid.
Correct.
Right. So that's the only way you can lose a game check.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you get fined?
Yes. For by who? Yeah.
So say for instance, I can as a coach be like, and I can make it excessive, right?
No, you can't.
No,
the
NFLPA will get
Okay,
at you.
so what is there a a limit to it? Like,
I'm sure that there is.
it's like 15.
Yeah, it can't be like an egregious
All right,
amount.
so if I say you jump off sides, you owe me 15.
15,000 or 1,500?
1,000.
You wouldn't get away with that.
Yeah. That's not happening.
Okay, so
they ain't letting that roll.
Can I get 10?
They might not let that roll.
I don't think that this amount, the amount of money that you'd like to take away
you
from
get
a
like
player, I don't think
2,500
you
maybe.
You can do that.
Okay, so that's like the amount of money that you want to be punitive.
It would
is
hurt
not
you.
gonna work.
Yeah.
Like, so here's what I will say. Since you can't really hurt their pockets like that, the only thing that you can really mess with a player with is that playing time.
Man.
That's it. That playing time.
And if I can embarrass you, because I'm gonna tell the people, I got a rule. You jump off sides, you gotta sit, dog. Then I see you after halftime. They'd be like,
because at that point, the money doesn't matter. Like, your teammates are going to look at you and be like, this guy's a clown. He's on the bench because he can't follow instructions.
And you sitting there and you're a starter.
The problem with it is, the reason why it's so hard from a coaching standpoint to enforce it is because, let's say that's your starting left tackle.
All right.
The backup left tackle, now you costing yourself a game.
No.
Now you're going to cost yourself your job.
No, here's the thing.
It's a tough balance.
That's what I'm saying.
It's a very tough balance.
But I understand, like, from a coach, I'm 30 now, so I always put myself on both sides of the argument. I can understand from a coaching standpoint, like, you can sit for a quarter. I can't sit you for the game.
No. I just want to, it depends. I can get you for a series.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, if a running back fumble, he's out for he's out for 2 series. That's just what it is.
Linemen would be totally upset at me because I'm like, you know how embarrassing it is when they say, "Come over, let me talk to you real quick," as you running off the field for false start.
What's the rookie receiver we got? Did he the one that lined up off sides?
Thrash, yeah.
Yeah, Thrash. Did he line up? Did he get all sides penalty or something? He did like the Kadarius Toney.
Thrash got called.
Guys, let me.
But my thing with that is, like, that's wide receiver 101. You get on the line, the first thing you do is look at that referee. Hey, am I good? I'm on. I'm on. And he gonna say either up or back. Like,
guys,
how do you not do that?
Let me cut off this whole conversation for a minute with this, because we're talking about, is it coaching, is it players? Would we agree that Atlanta, New Orleans, and Jacksonville are all probably fairly poorly coached teams?
Atlanta, Jacksonville, New Orleans.
Or at the very least, their coaches don't.
They're not great teams in
yeah,
general. I don't watch them enough to know that they're how.
All right, they're second, third, and fourth in least penalties.
Okay.
Would we agree that Harbaugh is a great coach, Baltimore? John,
of course.
Yes. He got a whole
second most penalties called.
He got something.
Only Dallas has one more penalty called than Baltimore.
Okay, sample size.
So, what do you mean?
Harbaugh's been coaching how many years?
They were Baltimore was top 10 last year in most penalties.
So here's what I'm saying.
I'm saying, so maybe it's not coaching at all. Maybe it's all the players mostly.
Could be. It's a new day and age.
If Harbaugh been coaching, well, I got
what's Pittsburgh's, out of curiosity?
This year, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. The Browns have only had 4 more flags thrown on them than the Steelers have. And we know Mike Tomlin's one of the best coaches in the league. Browns have had 115 flags against. including ones that were offsetting or declined. They were still penalties. And the Steelers have had 111.
Let me give you this. If I play at OU,
Yeah.
and I come to the coach and say, Ohio State, they're in the top 10 in penalties. Actually, to be truthful, they got way more penalties than us, coach. You know what my coach is going to say?
You ain't at Ohio
You ain't Ohio State. You're not as good as them. They can afford to get penalties.
Yeah.
You can't, buddy.
Okay.
They got Lamar.
great point.
They got Lamar Jackson, and he could bail you out. Is Lamar Jackson walking through this? You got Jameis turnover Winston. It's a culmination of things. Think about it, but we just talked about it. It's not only are you one of the most penalized teams, but you also turn the football over the most. You also have the worst special teams. So when you take it and look at it in a vacuum, and you say, well, listen, we're not that bad here. You say, well, you're top 10. You're top 5 in that. You're top 3 in this. That ends up at 3 and something.
It's funny that this is the conversation we're having in the middle of December on a show talking about the Cleveland Browns. We're arguing about
who's to blame for the penalty.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I think one of the things that's interesting, and the category I think I blame the coaches more are the pre-snap penalties. Because that's just discipline. That's just focus, right? As opposed to
you blame the players more?
No, I blame the coaches more on pre-snap because that means to me players are not prepared or they're not locked in. I guess you could say that's on the players.
Yeah, sort of on the players.
But if you look at the teams with the most pre-snap penalties, they are mostly bad teams. The Browns by far the most pre-snap penalties. Tennessee's 2, they stink. Chicago 3, they stink. Green Bay 4, they're good. Minnesota 5 is good. But then Dallas, Carolina, the Giants, the Jets, Miami. So 8 of the top 10 pre-snap penalty teams are bad teams.
I guess the main point here is when it comes down to it at the end of the day, when you don't have a good team and you don't have the horses to go compete. You played the Kansas City Chiefs this past Sunday, right? A team that's won multiple Super Bowls, back to back, right? I mean, they're a dynasty. To beat them, you have to do every freaking little
That's
thing
true.
right. Extra attention to detail.
Right.
If you can't do that, how the hell do you think you're going to even be in
No,
the
that's
game?
fair. You're right. Like, yes, the Chiefs don't get called for a lot of penalties.
That's why this is
The
such a
Ravens
bigger
do, but the
story
Ravens can overcome.
with this team because if you can't do the mother stinking little things right,
Yeah.
how can you do anything right?